What's up, it is Ben Shepherd here and welcome back to RunThrough TV. Okay, what you're about to see is a full unedited conversation between myself and Henry Wade. Henry is a lifestyle influencer who recently ran 7 marathons in 7 days in New York, finishing the whole thing with the New York Marathon. I hope you enjoy this conversation here on RunThrough TV.
My name's Henry. I guess I'm a fashion, fitness and kind of lifestyle content creator. I've got a big passion for all things creativity, fitness wise, love running, and everything I kind of do on my socials is kind of to try and give confidence to gentlemen, whether it be through dressing or through fashion or good, so dressing and fashion or through fitness and through mindset, and yeah, helping people reach the potential they truly are capable of. And I've just completed a pretty tough challenge where I went through 7 marathons in 7 days, all in New York, and I finished the last one at the New York Marathon on November 6th. So it's coming up to 2.5 weeks ago since I wrapped up that challenge, and I've now got 2 missing toenails and still 3 bruised toenails, which are all purple on one side of the foot. So yeah, I'm still nursing a couple of bruises and war wounds, but other than that, I'm slowly healing up nicely.
I guess the start, mate, is what sort of led you to this career, to what you do now. You're a very creative guy, but what sort of brought you to this place?
Okay, so it's a long. Well, I won't go through the whole story. As we'll be here for an hour, and longer than 2 hours, just on this topic. But it's in a nutshell. I do a lot of things with my twin brother Will, and we both have this brand, like the Wade Twins is what we are, sorry. And in that we traveled to Australia, as everyone does, puts on a backpack, and you do your fun bit of traveling back in, I think it must have been 2000 and about 5-6 years ago. And on the way there, I did what every backpacker does and just gets outrageously drunk. Doesn't really has the most amazing time, and causing all sorts of havoc. Probably why half the nation hate us Brits is because of me. But hey, I got to Australia and I ended up realizing how out of shape I was and being like, wow, you can't live like this forever. As much as it is fun in the moment, alcohol and partying doesn't make you truly happy all the time. Maybe it suppresses that for a tiny moment, but at the end of the day, it doesn't. And I've got into the best shape of my life. And I actually, through getting through the best shape of my life, I got too obsessed with fitness. And it was like, I saw both sides. One, they're both unhealthy, right? You can't. So I started to live like this balance. And on the way back from Australia, I decided I started living in Australia for a year. And then on the way back, I traveled again and I wanted to document my journey. So we started taking some nice photos and we wanted to show this like balance of how you stay fit on the roads, and doing some routines and workouts and showcasing that to our audience with my brother. And then we kind of got back into London and we just kind of started to just showcase fashion, lifestyle, moved to London. We were networking all the time, heading to events we weren't invited to, just trying to like sneak in and stuff like that. And then we just started practicing and getting used to photos and buying new cameras and creating the best quality content we could, all doing this while we had a full-time job as well. So yeah, and then our platform started growing, our content started getting better, we were learning a lot more, and yeah, so now we're here for 4 years on full-time, and it's been going really well. And it's ever changing all the time, but at the end of the day, change is good. I think you should always embrace change, and it keeps things exciting and stuff like that. So yeah.
I guess it was trying to find that balance then, wasn't it? Like you said, you went traveling and it was kind of like that all or nothing mentality, to partying, to just having a good time, then getting into fitness, again, being that all or nothing mentality into that side of things. So was it just finding that balance that was maybe the difficult thing? And do you feel like you've now found that?
Yeah. Well, I didn't really think about it at the time. Like, I just thought what I was doing was the thing because everyone else was doing it.
Yeah.
And then I got to Australia, everyone was in fitness and stuff. So, and then it kind of clicked to me, like, both of these aren't healthy. So it was like, just trying to find that balance. And that kind of struck a chord to me. And it was like, well, actually, balance is so key. Like, there was times when I was so into my fitness that I was neglecting seeing friends. I wasn't going out for dinners because it would be pushing me off my fitness pal, and I didn't want to ruin my calories for the day or so and or whatever. And now it's got to the point where I've done that. I've been into the such dark side of it that now I've learned it all. And I think almost everyone needs to go through that stage of their life to understand it for themselves, because people can tell you, oh, this is what it's like, but you don't really get it until you've actually experienced it yourself or had those kind of, I guess it was almost like an eating disorder in a way, or being so into it in a bad way. Because like you don't want to eat broccoli every 5 minutes. So and I was doing that, do you know what I mean, trying to hit my macros to the point because it was supposed to be the right thing, and if I went a gram over I'd be slightly annoyed at myself. But I think it's definitely learned that balance now, and now I've just got such a balanced life that it's just like I know when to stop, and I know when my body needs to rest, and I know when I can have bad food. It's like understanding that like principle, what works for you. And for me, I just go by like an 80-20 rule all the time, and it just works out really well.
Yeah, and like you say, that's then the balance then, isn't it? If you've got 80-20, you know that if you're really smashing macros training, but your mates have got a big birthday party, you know that you can kind of trade that off to then stay on course with your fitness goals as well. I think that's so important. And it's like a slippery slope, isn't it? Either way, like you say, like you just don't know which way you're going to fall sometimes. Yeah,
100%, mate. I think also it depends what kind of goal you have. Like sometimes you're going to have to be really strict with everything. Like I just ran the London Marathon, and during that I ended up, I was aiming for a sub 3 hours, and I got it, but I wouldn't have got it if I didn't put in the really hard work and the sacrifice. So there are moments in your life where you have to be like, right, I'm going to be really hard work for the next X amount of time, and know that like you're going to have to put off certain things. You're going to have to maybe put off going for those drinks to your friends. You're going to have to ensure you're getting that 8-9 hours sleep, because if you really want that goal bad enough, you have to cut things out of your life that you don't always need. But after I'd done some of those things, it was like, right, now it's time for a little bit of a break. Like, so after I ran the 7-7, like, I genuinely missed going for beers and going out for dinner. It was like, I want to do these things which make me a normal person, because if you just constantly are pushing and pushing and pushing, you forget to kind of enjoy the view. And it's really important to just stay, sometimes appreciate where you are and what you've actually done, instead of just keep putting your foot on the gas pedal all the time. Do you know what I mean? Because you're going to get burnt out as well at the end of the day. And so right now I'm kind of in like enjoyment mode, but also, just kind of a bit more enjoyment mode, I'd say.
I've always found as well though that if you have those periods, which I think is really good to have, where you're like uber focused on a specific goal, for you like doing the sub 3 marathon, or I've done things in the past where like same thing, I've cut out everything that I think is going to be detrimental to the goal. When you then hit that goal, number one, it makes that goal so much better when you hit it. Like it feels like yes. And number two, when you do go back to those social situations or some of the things that you've cut out, they also feel better. It's also, it's like you're almost like rewarding yourself for doing something and being committed to a goal. And it almost makes it even more worthwhile, I think.
Yeah, you're totally right, mate. You've hit the nail on the head there. Like you start to lose enjoyment of things if you do them all too much. And even that's with fitness as well. If you do it constantly, and you're not changing up your routine or something, you're just gonna get bored of it. Or if you're not changing up things, it does get a bit monotone at times. So it's always nice to mix things up a bit. And like you said, it makes it even sweeter when you do get the results and you've cut out certain things for a little bit of time. So yeah.
Let's talk 7 and 7 then, man. Let's talk to start with concept. Why was this something that you boys came up with? And can you remember like that first seed of an idea?
Yeah, so unfortunately this time, November 13th last year, just over a year ago to the day, Will's house burned down. And it was such a traumatic experience for him. Like I always thought nothing like this would ever happen to anyone as close to me. You only see it on movies or whatever, and it was really bad. And Will suffered really badly from PTSD for like 3 to 4 months ongoing. And he kind of found running, we always loved running, but he kind of found running his only really escape to kind of just focus on your legs, your breath, and your body moving, right? And you're not looking at any phone, you're just worrying about you and the world around you, which is really nothing at the time, and just you're processing your thoughts. And we both loved running. And it was coming up to about 6 months after Will was suddenly started to get a bit better. And we were kind of like discussing this idea about, I think we should do something, mate, because you suffered really bad mental health and I watched you go through it. And as a brother and a business partner, watching him go through this was really hard for me as well, because there were moments where he was like, I'm fine, we'll be working. And then halfway through the day, it would break down. And I'm like, oh, like what do I do here? Because I've got to then pick up all the pieces, and he's coming to me with these issues, and it was really difficult. But I had to just be really patient and understand what he was going through, because I couldn't really understand it because I hadn't actually gone through it. But it was just really being like patient and understanding from his terms of what he was going through. And so I said to him, mate, I think we should really do something. Like, it's going to be, well, Men's Mental Health Month. It's also a big month, November. And it's almost around the year since you did it, since that happened. And we thought, I think we could run 7 marathons in 7 days. And he was like, let's do it. And we've always been, like I said, like naturally fit guys. So we can go out and run a marathon. It's fine. It's just, for us, it's more of one of those things where it's like, it depends what time we want to get. So we're quite competitive. So we're always like, right, I want to get a good time. So the 7 and 7 was less about time. It was more about just getting through it, because we've done one marathon before, but even the next day, we've never really gone for like a 5 or even a 10K. We're probably recovering, right? And so actually stepping into the unknown, even on day 2, was like, how the hell are my knees going to cope? Because they've never been under this pressure before. So yeah, that was kind of the way we kind of came around it. And we managed to luckily get a place at New York Marathon. So we thought, well, what we'll do is we'll run 6 back-to-back and finish at the New York Marathon. So it's kind of like a nice finishing point. And it gives us something to like look forward to, not just finishing and being like, well done, mate, me and you finished it together. And,
it's so sick.
Yeah, it was, man. It was it was like the cherry on top. I'm not going to lie, crossing that finish line. Well, in London Marathon, I knew when I had 4K to go, I knew I was going to make the sub 3, unless I was just going to something bad was going to happen. And I was really happy. I was like, I know I'm going to do it, whatever. But this was a different type of feeling. Like, with 5K to go, I just turned my headphones off and just I've never had a bigger smile on my face. And it actually gives me goosebumps even thinking about my own achievement, thinking about it, and I crossed that line and I was just so happy. And yeah, it was like such a weird feeling, because what I've just done, I thought was actually a really incredible, and I hate to blow my own trumpet, and Will's, but it was such an incredible achievement. And to put your bodies through that, it becomes more of a mental game over a physical game. And it's just, if you can push your mind to something like that to overcome, I think you can push your mind to do a lot more in life, and people don't really understand that.
And it's something you'll hold on to for a long time now, when you're in difficult times in your life and when things maybe aren't going well, because that happens to all of us. You can go back to that and think, well, I got myself through that, and that was one of the most difficult things I've ever done. So if I can get myself through that, I can get myself through this. I think it's quite cool that you finished at New York Marathon, because as well, with challenges that are kind of like self-built, sometimes the end of them feel a little bit like flat, because you finish them and it's kind of like, well, maybe you've got a group of mates there or some family or whatever. Whereas with this, it's like a full-on event, something that would have been amazing to finish just on its own, but with everything that came before as well, crossing that line must have been like crazy.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it was funny. I actually got my fastest time on the New York Marathon as well.
So good.
I managed to get like 15 to 17 minutes faster. I think it's because you got the energy, you got the all the crowd around you and the motivation. The caffeine certainly helped, and big buzz and stuff. So it was like all the adrenaline. But funnily enough, you mentioned, like, even though I finished at the New York Marathon, so basically the buzz after was amazing. But then I got home, had food, I sat on my bed and had a nice bath or whatever. And I actually had this like kind of moment of anxiety hit me, because it was all over. And I was like, oh, that's it. I'm done. Like, and I was doing a lot of work and like reading a lot of things about why this happens. And I was almost prepared for it, because a lot of people were telling me this would happen. And I think it's something to do with like, you've had so much like dopamine, serotonin in your body, and you've been pushing every day, and you've had like a purpose to fulfill. And when it kind of stops, you feel like, oh, well, I'm done. And it was such a really weird moment. It was like, I almost straight away thought, well, what next?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's hard, because I want to be happy in these moments, and they're supposed to be the happiest moments of my life, but I'm almost driven to think about what's next straight away. And I mean, I'm happy about how I think about that because it makes me kind of stay humble and makes me kind of really want to continue to push on in life. But also I've got to sometimes remember what I have just done and to really appreciate it, because not everyone can get up and run 7 marathons. So it's like being kind on myself often sometimes.
It's like smelling the roses, isn't it? Just taking a step back and saying like, look, I've done this. But that's a real thing. Like that post, I've spoken to a lot of adventurers, that post-adventurer, like fatigue almost, and that way that you kind of think about the adventure, and you kind of forget the moments that you guys, and like if I'm talking about an adventure, they forget the moments they've had out there, and it's only like looking back at it when you realize, oh my god, like this was actually quite a special thing and an amazing thing to have done. I love the fact that it was a 7-day challenge, because 7 days it's a period of time where it becomes quite difficult mentally to prepare for. A 3-day challenge I always think is quite easy to prepare for, because day number 1's the first day. Day number 2 is the middle day. Day number 3 is the last day. Even something that's 5 days, day number 1, the first day. The only real days are day number 2. I think that sometimes are a bit funny, because day number 3, you can think tomorrow's going to be the last day. I'm going to be thinking it's the last day. And day 4, tomorrow is the last day. But with 7, you've got that period in the middle where it's kind of a little bit like, well, I'm so far from the start, but I'm also so far from the end. Like, what was day 3 and 4 like?
So it's a really good question. And Will and I actually, we ran every single day separately. And the reason why we did that was because at the end of the day, it's our own journey. Like if you're always with someone, and we have been for the last 30 years being identical twins, you want to go through your own thoughts. And we both have our own identity, despite being a twin. I am Henry and he is Will. So we both have our own thoughts and feelings we wanted to process and understand what we wanted to learn on this journey. So Will's 7 was actually very different to my 7, albeit we ran pretty similar routes, but thought processes were very different. And I know for me, first one went really weird, because it was like, wow, first one, right, I've got this adrenaline, I'm really excited. Number 2 was like, I was a bit nervous because I didn't really know what was going to happen on the knees, whether I was going to get injured or anything, or because I've never done this before. 3 and 4, it really started, and especially 5 actually, really started to get tough, because it becomes less of a physical game and becomes more of an emotional game and mental game, and just realizing what you're actually doing, and the thoughts going through your mind just begin to, like, it becomes so different. Like I've never thought some of these thoughts before, but during those times, especially like day 4 and 5, it breaks you down. These runs were breaking me down to my essence and my core, and making me become most vulnerable. And I was showcasing that on my social media. I was showcasing to everyone, like, this is bloody tough. And I was like really emotional, crying at points and everything. And I think the reason I wanted to show that is because that shows real authenticity. And I think a lot of the time people on social media, especially, aren't there, or even in life on a daily basis, we're not our true selves, because we're kind of told to be a certain way, whether it be at our job or whether it be society, or how we're around our peers or friends. And we're not always ourselves all the time. And I think that really taught me to show this side of me, which I haven't really opened up and showed before. And I think it managed to open up to a lot of people as well, because Will and I's inboxes were flooded with DMs by being like, what you're doing is unbelievable, and doing it all around mental health and raising money for this charity and all about mental health and suicide prevention was just another touch, because we weren't just doing it for ourselves, we were doing it for everyone else who had been suffering. And to me, one of the things that kept me going was like, I know that I'm going through 3.5, 4 hours of pain, but what people go through with like mental health issues is ongoing, not just 4 hours a day like I was suffering. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but for months, and that can be really tough. So that was kind of a bit of the motivation that also kept me going, because I know there's other people out there struggling.
It's kind of those feelings, isn't it, as well, that for you it's going to be over in, like you say, 4 hours, and for people that are suffering, it's not going to be over. It's not going to be over until like they've sought help or they've come through the difficult period that they're in, which is I always think of with running challenges, they're kind of like life just squeezed down into a short period of time, aren't they? Like, it's weird how you can go through so many emotions in such a short period of time when you're running. Like, at one point you're like elated, this is the best thing that's ever happened, and then 10 minutes later you're like on the floor, like at the bottom of the trough. When you were there though, man, like, where you mentioned like the motivation, obviously doing it for charity, and that's a huge motivation, but how did you get yourself out of that place, out of that trough and back up to the peak?
So the way I like to break everything down is, I think a lot of people in life give up on their endeavors or whatever challenge they set themselves on because they see the end goal and it's too high and it's too hard to get to. So they see the top of the view and the top of the mountain, they're like, well, I can't get up there. And the way I do it is I always break everything down. So a marathon is what, 42 kilometers, 42.1, I think, or however, and or 26 miles, however you want to work it. So I just say to myself, every time I'd always go through 4 10Ks, and that's basically it, right? And I'd get through a tough 10K and I'd literally just say to myself, it's 10K, Henry. I run these for breakfast. Literally, I run these hungover. I run these with barely any sleep. I can do that without any food in my body. Do you know what I mean? I know to everyone else that is hard, but for me, it's just like, because I've got a natural fitness ability and I've been training for a long time now, that 10K is a lot easier for me than it used to be. So I just twist the thoughts in my head, and it's all about saying like you can instead of you can't. Like, I know Will suffered on day one. Will text me as soon as he finished, and I finished before him, and he goes, I've got to change the way I talk to myself, because he was saying such negative thoughts like, oh my God, what am I doing? I can't run 7, I can barely run 1 or whatever. Whereas if you just flip those thoughts and give yourself positive talk, you can do so much more. Like, one foot in front of the other. So I'd say like positive talk was massive, and also just breaking the goal down. And once you do those two things, it becomes almost like the sight becomes a little bit clearer, and you can kind of understand what you kind of have this like motivation within yourself to get back up on that horse and go and keep going to the end.
It's so true what people say though, isn't it? Like, the brain's so powerful, because the same tool in your brain that can talk to yourself so negatively and get yourself in such a horrible place can also be such a powerful tool in talking to yourself so positively and getting you through moments like you boys were in that time. And like you say, like your brother, that's just in that one day, you can be saying, I can't do this. And then the next day, well, you're going to be talking to yourself so much more positively. Realistically, nothing will have changed. Physiologically, in a day, nothing will have happened. Of course it won't. Like, it's just not possible. So it's just all in sort of that positive self-talk.
Dude, our brain is our superpower. It's a secret weapon. If we know how to control our own brain, then we will fly. Like, and that's why I do my research on brain. I find it so fascinating about how you can actually technically develop your brain to make you a stronger person. And if you understand it better, and you can use it to your advantage. Like I always say, like, the brain wants you to stay safe, right? That's its number one primary tool. So when you wake up in the morning at say 6 a.m. and you promise your friends you'll wake up early and go to the gym, but you keep hitting the snooze alarm, that's because your brain wants you to be safe. It wants you to stay in bed because it's cozy, it's warm, it's telling you to do it. But if you can do the thing, which is get up, go do the workout, you are just going to grow as a person and you're going to feel way better. So if we can step out of our comfort zone and do the things that aren't comfortable, then we're just going to grow. And if you know that about your brain, then you just get up and get it done.
Put yourself in those uncomfortable positions, man, and that's the most important thing, one of the most important things.
And you will naturally grow from it. And I think people, like I said before, people look at things being too hard. Like, people are like, God, I don't even know how you run one marathon. I really run 10K. I'm like, well, you can run 10K. You just got to start by running 1, and then you can run 2, then you can run 3. And then within a few weeks or a few months, however long it takes, you will eventually run 10. And you'll look back going, why was I struggling all that time? It's just all in the mind and breaking the goal down, and you can achieve it.
And there will be people, mate, watching this thinking exactly that, thinking, well, like, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to do that. Like, what would be your advice to them? What would you say to those people that are thinking, I could never do something like that?
Again, it's just like, I think we've got to find out what you really want to do in life, and really what you believe is your purpose. And for me, I found running that thing, and I just love it. Like, I put on my shoes and I almost feel like I just like this buzz in me at like 4 or 5K when I'm running one of my intervals or whatever. I'm like, it's that high I get. And that runner's high is real. But I mean, I do believe everyone could do anything. It's just having that self-belief, because I think we're sometimes surrounded by people who often will say you can't do something, and it stops you from, and a lot of people then that gets into their own head and they're like, oh yeah, maybe you're right, I can't do this, so then they don't even bother trying. But if they kind of switch that self-talk around and actually kind of was like, well, actually, screw you, I can do it. And that's why I believe, like, surround yourself with really positive people. And this last couple of years, I've really just surrounded myself with such a tighter circle and people who genuinely believe in me. People where out of the blue, I'll get a text message saying, hey dude, just let you know, I hope you're having a great day today. Like things like that, and then it makes me being surrounded by people like that who genuinely believe in you will just make you go on to achieve those goals. But it's just also, just don't listen to the people that say they can't. Yeah, some goals may be unrealistic, but I always say shoot for the like the moonshots, because you should be saying things that are so crazy and the ideas are so ridiculous that you want people to be talking behind your back and they're never going to do it. But with the moment you do it, they're a bit like silenced. Like I actually spoke to a guy the other day and he was like, dude, when you first announced that, I was thinking, yeah, they're just going to kind of do this thing and they might not actually do it. It's one of those things you announce on Instagram, whatever. Then he goes, and then you started doing it. And I was like, and then he goes, you were 4 days in, bro, and I couldn't take my eyes off you. And I was like, mate, I appreciate your honesty, but do you know what I mean? It's just like, I do genuinely believe anyone can do anything, but you've got to surround yourself with the right people and almost have that self-belief as well, because self-belief is a powerful tool.
What an absolute legend Henry is, and thank you so much to him for coming on RunThrough TV. Cannot wait to see what Henry does next. By the way, please do subscribe to RunThrough TV if you don't yet, and I will catch you again very, very soon back on RunThrough TV.